Hello and welcome to this Women in Data, Business of Data LinkedIn Live. My name is Catherine and I'm the Content and Community Manager here within the Business of Data team at Corinium. Now, never let it be said that we don't listen to feedback. Last month, we aired a conversation between these fantastic executives, and although you loved it, you really wanted it to be live. So you could ask all of your questions directly to our speakers. So we have done just that. Over the next 30 minutes, we will be chatting away to 5 executives all about data, analytics, and the consumer. Joining me today are Amy Gershkoff Bolles, who is the Chief Data Officer for Bitly, Nirali Patel, who's the Director of Data Analytics for OpenReach, Maritza Curry, who's the Head of Data for RCS, JoAnn Stonier, who's the Chief Data Officer for MasterCard, and last but certainly not least, Minna Kärhä, who is the Data Analytics Lead for Finnair. Hello, ladies. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Catherine. It's nice to be here.
Hiya. Thanks for inviting us again.
Yes, thanks for having us.
Brilliant. So we have touched on a range of topics for these monthly meetups. You guys seem to love doing them. Our audience absolutely love them, as I say. So this is our first ever live conversation. So I'm going to kick straight off into some of our planned questions. But as I say, get those questions into the comments. The absolute amazing thing about doing this live is we can answer your questions live on air. So I think it's fair to say 2020 has been an absolute roller coaster. And with that, the changes that we have all seen in our customers, no matter what industry you're in, have been unprecedented. So the first question I've got for you is, how has the change in customer demand impacted your data and analytics strategy? Amy, I'll come to you for that one first.
Well, Catherine, thanks so much for having us back to continue the discussion. Really appreciate it. What we're seeing and hearing from our customers is that, consumer demand is for real-time data is ever more important now in the pandemic. So most businesses have these consumer demand forecasting models that they've refined over, in some cases, many decades to predict consumer behavior. What are consumers going to buy? How are they going to buy it? Where are they going to buy it? When are they going to buy it? And what we're seeing in the year 2020, as you said, not only has it been a bit of a roller coaster, but all of the traditional data and analytics tools at our disposal, none of them work anymore for forecasting consumer demand because consumer demand has changed in so many unprecedented ways given the pandemic. People are going to the movies less, they're traveling less, they're buying more groceries, they're buying more Clorox and toilet paper than ever before. And so what we're finding is a need for new real-time data sets that really help put the pulse on what consumers are interested in consuming at any given time. So we're seeing a big increase in demand for these real-time data sets that can enlighten us about and enlighten our clients about consumer behavior. And so at Bitly, we've done a lot of work to be able to surface insights from our data sets in real-time ways to provide this kind of digital trends analysis in real-time data for our clients. So that's what we're seeing in this unprecedented year.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for joining us. Maritza, how about you? I know in our previous catch-ups, some strategy has been a really important part of your role. So how has customer demand really impacted that for you?
So Catherine, in South Africa, specifically in the banking and financial services industry, we have a big segment of our population who are actually new to the formal finance and credit space. So a lot of our customers only entered formal credit and financial or acquired formal financial products in the last 10 to 15 years. So I think the one demand is to have very simple financial products that is aligned to our customers' lifestyles. And of course, this is very much enabled by data and analytics. So really understanding our customers. So from a strategy point of view, that's really driving the single view of the customer, as well as data acquisition strategy to enrich our customer profiles. And it's also driving innovation in creating data-driven products, data products for our customers. So one of my previous clients when I was a consultant was one of the South African banks, and they used AI to help customers understand budgeting and how to budget for the future. So I would say, to summarize, from a strategy point of view, what's driving data strategy for companies in the banking and financial industry in South Africa is definitely understanding our customers and their unique needs.
Super, thank you so much. Now, if you see me looking across all the various screens, it's because we're having questions come in, but I'm keen to get this one answered through the group first. Nirali, when we last spoke, you were just starting out in your new fantastic role. So I'm keen to hear, now that you've spent a bit of time in the company, how customer demand has really been impacting you and your life.
Thank you, Catherine. And so my role as data director in Openreach has been quite an interesting journey for me into the telco industry. But what I have learned and what my teams have learned is that we've had such a demand from our customers due to the increased time they've had at home in the last 9 months, with children doing their virtual school learning, parents, people doing Zoom calls all day, just like we're doing here today. Like the others have said, more Netflix being watched, etc. So we've had to really accelerate our customer-focused data strategy. And that is about looking at the analytics through the eyes of the end customer. So even though Openreach don't directly sell any internet or broadband services, but the infrastructure that sits underneath all of that. And what we are finding is that customers have become more demanding because they want better speeds, they want less faults on their lines. Whereas before, I can only assume they used a lot of the internet at their work, in their workplaces, and they did at home. So what we're having to do is change the way we look at, not look at our silo processes, but use the data to look at it from the end customer's viewpoint and find those sort of faults or those repairs or meet their, demands and needs, and identifying sort of innovative ways to keep the complaints down, to keep the faults, on those lines down, which has been really different for an organisation that is an engineering mindset organisation. It's very logical and very, clear focused and process driven. So the guys have been doing some fantastic work, and I'm here hoping to accelerate that as well.
Fantastic. What I love about these conversations is I can really put myself in the shoes, because I know I wasn't live streaming and doing this sort of thing last year, whereas now I am, and it absolutely takes all the broadband out of the household. No family member is allowed on the Wi-Fi whilst I'm doing this, so I can completely understand that actually that's now impacting you and the wider company as well. So that's fantastic. Minna, what a year for the airline industry. How has customer demand been impacting you?
Yeah, for us, definitely the whole environment has changed dramatically, and we need to use all the data and wisdom that we have, and the, trying to find the crystal ball to understand how our environment has changed. For customers particularly, what is very important for us at this moment is to understand their confidence. So obviously there are restrictions that we follow, and there are kind of the what our competitors are doing and planning. That's what we are following, and continuously having several plans and trying to figure out which one to follow. But then it's also about the consumers' trust and confidence of traveling. So that is one critical data set for us to follow. We are also closely following kind of online data to understand what people are searching for, and also trying to use that for the completing or complementing the confidence data set. But definitely this is something that if somebody would have told me a year ago that this is what 2020 looks like, it would have felt like just science fiction movie or something. So it really has been challenging year, but I've been happy to see how important data analytics has proven to be during this very difficult time. So that's a good thing.
Absolutely. I always love it when we can take positives away from a rather stressful and just, as you say, just something straight out of a sci-fi film. And then to round this off then, JoAnn, how about you? How has this really impacted you? I mean, I know from speaking to colleagues and peers in MasterCard, it's certainly been a very interesting time indeed, but I'd love to know how it's impacted your wider data analytics strategy.
Yeah, I mean, I'm listening to everybody, and I don't think any of us started out 2020 knowing what kind of year it would be, but I do think that our where we started and where we're ending up in 2020 as a B2B, but really, B2B and a B2B2C company with our B2C brand, most of our data insight products have morphed from being, we would do a lot more customized work with our largest customers, our banks, our merchants. This year, I think what we've really had to do is what we call platformized a lot of our offerings so that we could move faster to meet the demands of so many of our different types of business customers who need more insights about how to run their businesses, right? You just heard a sampling, right, from a banking customer of ours to an airline customer of ours, right, to a telco customer, and just the different perspectives that each industry has. And so if I can just riff on that, right, we also know that individuals, because your question is about individuals, their behavior is not the same throughout this pandemic, right? Depending upon what's happening in their location, we've used a lot of our information to assist consumers to know what businesses are open, for example, and what businesses are closed, right? So we use our location information, right? We know when businesses are closed, they're not processing transactions, right? So that's helpful to know that the business is not open at this time because of the pandemic, or that when things are opening up because the virus load is lighter, that restaurants are available. Sometimes they're available for takeout, sometimes they're available for eat-in dining. So we've been creating products and solutions like that for consumers, as well as more platformized solutions for each of our industry segments. And I think that we will be doing that more and more going forward, because the speed of information, I don't know that anybody touched on that, I think that has increased as well. While I think all of our customers were moving in that direction before 2020, I think what we have seen is that acceleration really take off because of the pandemic. And I think that we just, heard that's definitely the pattern and the trend that we now know, the power of data and analytics. But I think it means that organizations that can give the right insights to their customers, that it's faster and faster, right? So how can we be ahead of those requests is another thing that I think we're going to only see more and more of. And we can talk about more of that in the next part of the conversation.
Absolutely fantastic. We have had a question come in, and as I say, the perk of being live is being able to do this. So Christy has written in and says, are you seeing brick and mortar companies adapting, or are they falling further behind on their digital transformation journeys? Is there anyone in particular who wants to take that one first?
Yeah, I'm happy to. I'll jump in here. I think that many organizations have had what I will call a transformation roadmap, right? And I think that, again, it can vary by the type of business they are and what they perceived, the need was going to be, what customer demand was going to be for digitized services, right? I think that we've seen an acceleration for the most part by many sectors, right, where they can. But even customers that had a digital, I'll use the questions phrase, digital transformation program or roadmap, right? It doesn't necessarily mean it's a panacea for some of the business challenges that they have in front of them, right? So where have we seen the digital roadmap have to be accelerated, right? Supermarket chains, right? Grocery delivery, right? Many of us were used to going to the grocery store, right? How many of us now have grocery delivery? Or same thing for pharmaceutical retail operations, right? Those type of organizations had those roadmaps, right? But they weren't being utilized by end consumers in the same volume and variety that they are today. So all those type of organizations are really trying to accelerate their digital roadmap. I don't know that there's anybody that I would point at as falling behind. I think the question is, and I think all of us understand this, that the economic impacts, right, of 2020 are not universally felt. And so how quickly can anybody, execute against those roadmaps is different sector by sector, obviously, based upon what it's done to their revenue, their ability to provide their solutions, given the vagaries of the pandemic.
Yeah, and just to build on what JoAnn said, I think absolutely prior to the pandemic, there were definitely trends towards contactless payments. There were trends towards contactless delivery, more digitization of inventory, leveraging data to manage supply chain operations in various organizations, or to manage strategic decisions, marketing optimization, and so forth. I think what we've seen in the pandemic is that all of the trends towards digital transformation have simply been accelerated dramatically. And so, to JoAnn's point, many of these companies that had roadmaps for digital transformation, they were investing in it in a modest, methodical way to get from where we are today to a more digitized business strategy. What we've seen in the pandemic is that all of that, by necessity, has been accelerated. And what has actually happened that I think is really interesting is, as that's accelerated, all of these digital engagements and digital interactions during which you collect data, all of a sudden companies have had to think about their data strategy in a very different way, because they're starting to collect so much more data from all of these transactions. So thinking about how to store that data, how to make that data available in a privacy protected way within their organization, how to do real-time analytics on all of that data to continue their process of optimization, and so forth. All of that has had to be dramatically accelerated given the sort of timeline that's happened on digital transformation during the pandemic.
Brilliant. Thank you so much. Did anyone else want to jump in on that question, or are we okay to move on?
Yeah. So I just want to add something to that. In South Africa, our challenge isn't that digitization is not happening fast enough, or that companies are falling behind. The challenge is customer adoption. So in South Africa, the credit space is still very cash reliant. So there's definitely been an acceleration of digitization in the industry during COVID. But the challenge is that a large segment of our customer base do not have a high level of trust in digital products and digital payment methods. So adoption is really a challenge for us, and it's definitely been a challenge to shift our customers away from store payments to digital payments. So definitely not a challenge on our side or in South Africa with digitization, but with adoption.
Brilliant. Now I'm so conscious of time, because half an hour is not a long time. So I'm going to move us on to the next question, which is, on our last session, we spoke quite a lot about a hybrid model. So whether we put that towards remote working. Some of us want to be back in the office. Other of us love remote working. We kind of suggested that there would be this compromise between the two, this hybrid model. But can we apply the same thinking to customer behavior? What do we think is going to stay the same? What do we think is going to go backwards pre-COVID? And how are you going to prepare for that change in demand into 2021? Now, I don't expect any of us to have a crystal ball to be able to predict the future, but how at least are you preparing for potentially that hybrid model coming up? Maritza, I'll head back to you for that one first.
Okay, so I'm just going to add on to what I said just. So we haven't really seen away from paying in physical stores, shifting to digital payments. So I think the shift for us is more in what our customers are now expecting from us, and that is a more personalized conversation, because even good credit customers, or customers with a good payment and credit profile pre-COVID, may now be under pressure. So our customers want a personalized experience and conversation with organizations, and they want to know that we understand their circumstances. So data and analytics definitely enabling us to understand our different payment and profiles and have more personalized communication with our customers.
Super, thank you so much. Minna, how about yourself? I mean, again, I'm not expecting you to pull out the crystal ball and tell us what is it, unless you know,
Let me take my crystal ball and I will tell you.
But how are you preparing for that?
Well, obviously, it's still to be seen, but it can be that some of the business travel will be reduced because companies are now more experienced and have already adapted this kind of remote work and more practices on doing meetings and even workshops remotely via the online. So that might have an impact on the business travel, but there is a lot of kind of a personal encounters and meeting people personally that is still required to have successful business meetings and engaging new partners and so forth. So I don't think that it will fully stop. And what comes to then consumers, individuals traveling for leisure, that is still something that I believe that people want to see new places and visit new cultures, and I think that is also very important for us as global citizens to be connected. And obviously there are a lot of people who travel because their families, relatives live far away and they need to meet each other also in person. So that is also something that I expect to come back once the restrictions and the pandemic is over and it's safe to travel again.
Super, thank you so much. Nirali, how about yourself? How are you going to be going into 2021 with that hybrid model in mind? How is it going to impact you, do you think?
So for us, I think it's going to be much the same as it has been this year. Lots of organisations are offering actual hybrid working, which means that our organisation needs to make sure that the underlying infrastructure is still stable and ready for all of us to use. And then hence we need to move more into predictive fault analysis, etc. So that's, looking at the way to avoid that customer, moving us from a reactive process into a proactive, predictive process to keep that continuity of service from the customer to wherever they're connecting to. If I had a crystal ball, I would have liked to have done this program a bit more slowly rather than the rapid pace that we've had to change. But I think I'd like to say we've got kind of the worst case scenario now, and now it's just getting that balance back, back into getting people back into work and helping them move forward in that from a digital perspective.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Yeah, I think the pace of how everyone, no matter what industry or line of work you've been in this year, I think the pace has definitely been quicker than most. Now, we only have a few minutes left here, so I am keen, unless there's any audience questions they want to send me right now, I am keen to go into our last one here, which is what new data and analytics innovations and technologies have you put in place to help customers? Because something that I've heard a lot is that data analytics and the CX units are far closer than they ever used to be. So what have you been putting in place to help customers? So I'm thinking chatbots, AIs, things like that. Amy, I'll come to you first for that one.
Yeah, so as I mentioned, we at Bitly we have a real-time digital trends data that gives people a sense of what consumers and businesses are sort of most socially sharing. And so that kind of real-time trends data has become increasingly important during the pandemic to give businesses insight into how to predict consumer behavior, whether B2C or B2B. It's very important to have that sort of real-time trends data. But the other thing I've seen amongst my clients, which are much like JoAnn, span a number of different sectors and industries. One of the interesting things that I've seen has been a renewed interest in data governance, in data cleanliness, in really data fidelity, really all of the what I like to call the data janitorial services that pre-pandemic perhaps did not receive the appropriate level of investment and attention. Now in the pandemic, when real-time data is a very important currency everywhere for every type of business, all of a sudden caretaking that data becomes increasingly important. So I've been delighted to see this increased focus on data governance and data cleanliness that I think actually, in addition to helping businesses during the pandemic, will form a long-term important key foundational layer that will enable digital transformation and data-driven strategic thinking in an ongoing way, even once a vaccine is rolled out and hopefully life starts to look a little more like it did before the pandemic started.
Absolutely fantastic. Now, actually, JoAnn, on that point, I mean, when we're talking about technology that helps customers, what a revelation the contactless card was prior to COVID. Now it's seen as a real help out and to keep us all safe. I know I've been definitely using it a lot more and trying to avoid my PIN as much as possible. But what other tech have you been putting in place to help customers?
Well, I mean, obviously, contactless will continue to be part of our strategy. I'm chuckling at Amy's comments, though, of the janitorial data services, because I had a phone call this morning just on that topic, Amy, with a whole bunch of clients who are absolutely looking at that issue. I think that we provide them with, an awful lot of data consulting. We provide them with a whole bunch of data insights. But I do think that organizations are also struggling with other issues related to data that we are now beginning to think about as well. So the ethical, what I call more the ethical parts of data, not so much janitorial. So I'll give you a new phrase for you, because one of the issues that came up very much in the United States is all the issues related to bias in data, algorithmic bias, bias in data, in different data sets that are part of the inputs into machine learning, typical data analytics, and certainly artificial intelligence. And what kind of governance processes do you need to have in place in order to ensure that the outputs are correct, and then also that as you apply them, that you're not adding in any other unintentional bias into your product design. And I know that financial services here in the United States are looking at that very closely, as are other segments. So I just wanted to mention that because it literally was a topic that I spoke about just this morning. But I think also that we're really looking at, I think the real-time trends issue. I think that platforming a lot of that information is going to continue. I think from an ecosystem perspective, enabling easier sharing of data, ensuring security of information. We haven't talked a lot about that today. I know our time is limited, but certainly 2020 has also shown some advancements in the need for keeping data secure as we transfer data across ecosystems. That's also been a really important topic, and I think we'll be continuing to have advancements in that area as well, because certainly data sharing is going to be part and parcel of just how we all work as we move forward.
Absolutely. Now, unfortunately, on that point of time, that is all the time we have today. 30 minutes sure does go quick. But thank you, each of you, for joining me. I know I've had comments come in saying they've enjoyed the sessions. So thank you so much for giving us some of your time today.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you, Catherine.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So as always, make sure you are subscribed to the Business of Data platform to be first in line for our thought-leading insights. And if you haven't done already, make sure you're following us on LinkedIn as well, both the Business of Data page as well as the Crinium page, which we're going live through now. That way you'll get a notification every time we go live, so you'll never be behind the curve. Now, these 5 execs that we've spoken to today are also within the top 100 global innovators in data analytics list as well. So if you'd like to find out a bit more about them and some of the interviews as well, do pop over to the Business of Data platform. Now, until next time, thank you and goodbye.